And there we have it. So thank you for being with us today. The first of hopefully many opportunities to get some training with us. I'm joined by Leon Gasquel, who is our cyber security group trainer for today, and he's obviously going to be giving you the opportunity to get more compliant and understand what cyber is all about. So without further ado, I'm going to open the training session and introduce you to Leon. Leon Gasquel from UK Cyber Security Group, welcome and thank you for offering this free training session to us.
Hi, thank you very much. It's an absolute pleasure. So, shall I share the presentation to kick off? Although I must say, we've got the questions that we'll go through for Cyber Essentials are currently valid, but they do change. And at least once to twice a year they change. So it's more questions added. There's a few that are on there now which are for information only. So when they get updated for the next version, those normally become a pass-fail question, and more are added for information only. That's usually how it works, unless there's something drastic that needs to be changed. So can everybody see that screen okay? Take that as yes.
Yeah, I can see.
Right, so that's me. If you there's my phone number in the bottom corner. If anybody wants to get hold of me, that's my email address, and that's the bottom center is the website address. There's only 95 slides, so I'm not joking either, there is. Right, so what is Cyber Essentials? It's the technical controls for your network laid down by the National Cybersecurity Centre. So they've dictated everybody's network should look like this. And then from there, they've employed IASME to, as the governing body to implement this across the board. And then obviously it's down to certifying bodies like myself. So if you want certifying to the standard, you come to us, we'll put you on the system, you fill out the questionnaire, and then we mark it according to the standard. So once you qualify, you then get the Cyber Essentials certified badge that's in the bottom corner of the screen, to show your customers that you are taking their information seriously. There is also CE Plus, which is the same, but it's audited. So somebody comes along and has a look to make sure what you put in the questionnaire is how your network is. And they reckon that simply by implementing Cyber Essentials, you can reduce the attack surface by hackers and whatnot by up to 80%. And we can even improve on that as well, which we'll get to shortly. So where can you get certified? If I change the screen to that one. So this is the website. Go to compliance services, cheapest Cyber Essentials in the UK. If you click onto that, you get to this screen here. Gives you some information about Cyber Essentials. And here is the self-assessment. The remote assistant is what you're getting now. Because obviously after this, if you were to buy the Cyber Essentials self-assessment, you get all the assistance with it as well. It's a guaranteed pass because you don't submit it till it's going to pass. So you just order online there, or you can send me an email and I'll send you an invoice. Then you scroll to the bottom, then you've got 3 documents here. This is the quick reference guide, which I made up, which then tells you, I think you're going to see that. This gives you the 5 controls and what's required for the 5 controls. And then the next one, the Cyber Essentials Self-Assessment Preparation Booklet. These documents are free to download on the website, so just help yourself. This is the booklets. and it does, if you scroll down, it gives you all the questions. So nothing's hidden. You can just download it and have a look, see what it's all about. So all the questions are listed here. It goes down there. It's quite a lot of them, to be fair. And you can just fill it out if you want to, send it to me, and I'll have a look, make sure there's no issues. And then here you've got the Cyber Essentials requirements for IT infrastructure. Have a quick look at that. That's what it looks like. Scroll down, it gives you all the requirements. This is a must read to do the the certification, because it is a question. Have you read it? And this shows you what is and isn't in scope. Obviously, people are not in scope. The internet's not in scope, but cloud services are servers, laptops, PCs, mobile phones, mobile devices, routers and firewalls. They're all in scope. Although I would say here it does say ISP home routers are not in scope. Yes, but no. If you're running your business from home, then your ISP router will be in scope, because you have to have at least one in the questions 2.4. So if I go back to the presentation. Right. So for GDPR compliance, there's another certification called IASME Cyber Assurance. Now, the audited version of IASME Cyber Assurance will make you GDPR compliant. If you notice these, you got level 1, level 2. Level 2 is audited. This badge here is what I've got on my email footer, because Cyber Assurance has just recently, in the last few months, been rebranded from IASME Governance. And if you qualify for level 2 on that, you get GDPR certified as well as quality principle certified, because there's an extra questionnaire which you can fill out for free. And that's done if you haven't got, I think it's ISO 9000 and something, which is the quality principles. So that would then certify you for GDPR compliance. So to improve on the 80% that Cyber Essentials protects you against, we're also, as Chris will say, jump up and down about, is we are accredited provider of Lujam Cyber. Lujam Cyber provides continuous monitoring. It alerts you if there are any issues on your network. It vulnerability scans all your network, so it goes from each device. It will vulnerability scan each one, then the next, then the next, and the next, to do your entire network, and then start again. It gives you a device log, so you then know exactly what's on your network, which is a requirement for IASME Cyber Assurance. You need to have a log of everything that's on your network. And you can get VPN access, so that you can dial in from the internet. You can dial into your network without, having other people monitor what you're doing. And it monitors your internet quality as well. So if your internet's a bit sketchy, the baud rate's dropping, or your ping rate's too high, things like that, then it'll let you know. And then also we are in cahoots with Prism Solutions, which provide insurance for cyber. So you've got cyber crime insurance, cyber liability insurance, and also they do a home cyber insurance as well. So if you're nothing to do with a business, you can get home insurance. So that makes sure that things like all your your network is covered, your photographs, things like that, they're all covered. Yeah, so if anybody wants any more information on that, that's on our website as well, along with Lujam Cyber. But it is worth saying that as well. With Cyber Essentials, you get £25,000 worth of free cyber indemnity insurance, provided you qualify. The criteria for that we'll get to later on. So the IASB portal, once you've ordered the Cyber Essentials certification, I'll then put you onto the system so you can gain access to the portal. You'll receive an email with a link and a username. The username should be your email address. The password I will text to you to make it more secure, so it's not all going through the same means. And that's the portal web address there. And this is what the portal actually looks like to log in. But it is worthwhile saying that once you've logged in for the first time, log out, then click on forgotten password, and you'll get a link to change your password, because otherwise, I know it, and you don't want that. It is secure after all. So the pass criteria: answer all questions. Even if it's not applicable, write it's not applicable, because otherwise it's an automatic fail. Because if we don't know, for example, if you leave your the name of your company blank, it's very ambiguous in the scope, therefore it can't pass. So literally everything has to have an answer, even if it's not applicable. Say, for example, your company number is, you're from outside the UK, so you don't have a company number from Companies House, therefore you put in not applicable, and then write in the notes, say, yeah, don't have a Companies House number because we're not in the UK. Otherwise, it's ambiguous if it's blank, therefore it would fail. And you can have up to 2 major non-compliances and still pass, which we'll get to later on when we go through the questions. So that a lot of the questions are an automatic fail, whereas some of them are a major non-compliance, so they're not as sort of important, but they are still a compliance factor. But you can have 2 major non-compliances and still pass. So this is what the portal actually looks like. I have sanitized these so that you can't see whose questionnaire this was that I took off. I used several. So you have to accept the terms and conditions for the certification. So some are drop-down menus, whereas this is accept. Some are yes or no questions, and you have to select one for it to be compliant. So the first question, A 1.1. What's your organization's name as per Companies House? So obviously I've had to delete that. So yeah, you need to have an answer here, just type it in. But if there's no reason why you wouldn't have a company name, for instance. So if it's left blank, it's an automatic fail. And 1.2, you have to, what type of organization is that? That's PLC. It's a drop-down list. So you just select whichever one's relevant. And again, compliance, so long as you select one, automatic fail if you don't. 1.3, what's your organization's registration number? Obviously, I've erased that as well. But yeah, so as per Companies House, if it's not relevant, just put not applicable. And then in the notes, you can write why it's not relevant. The more information, the better. It's worth saying, section 1 is all about your company. So that we know that it's to do with the qualifying criteria one for the certification, but also 2 for the insurance as well. So, organization, occupation. So, you have to write in, this is a short answer. So you write in, oh no, that's drop down menu for that one. You can click from any one of the drop down menus, but then if it's not relevant or yours isn't listed, then you can write in the applicant notes. Web address, obviously fill that out if it's relevant. If not, you just write in you don't have a website. All is compliant, because we do check to make sure that it is there, and we get an indication of the size of the company, things like that. Home workers. Now, this is a bone of contention, because if everybody's a home worker, then you've got your ISP routers, but then that's what I was saying about the scope, where it says you have to have a router listed in your network devices. It's a 2.5, I think. So if everybody's a home worker, it's not a problem, but you have to have at least one router listed later on. So this one here, are you a new applicant or is it a renewal? Fairly standard. From the drop down menu, just select what's relevant. Reason for certification. This is generally to improve security, but there's could be required for contracts as well. Sometimes you get if you're supplying your services to another company, they might request that you've got this. But also if you want military contracts, government contracts, councils, things like that, this is a requirement. This is actually their minimum requirement. There you go. Have you read the Cyber Essentials requirement for IT infrastructure document? Downloadable from the website. Just download it and have a read. Or it's there. You can click on this link here and download it from there. It does change regularly, so I always update it on the website, so it's always current. There's a new version coming out, I think, next month. So that's the A1 questions. That's all those done. Now moving on to the scopes. These are A2 questions. Does the scope of the assessment cover the whole organization? It doesn't matter whether you select yes or no. However, it will affect whether or not you qualify for the cyber insurance. So if it's a yes, then you qualify. If it's a no, you won't, effectively. No. We're missing a question. Because some of the questions, if you answered no to the previous question, you'd get, if it is not the whole organization, then what scope description would you like to appear on the certificate website, or on the certificate and website? So if it's not the whole organization, then you have to make clear the scope. Because if you were to do the Cyber Essentials Plus, for example, it's they would test a section, a percentage of your network, and so they need to know what is and what isn't in scope for the assessment. So 2.3, please describe the geographical locations. Yeah, so here you just put in whereabouts you're located within the UK. Usually it could be all UK offices. It gives you an idea, it gives the assessor an idea of the scope. So this is the one where most people trip up, because it says, please list the quantities of laptops, desktops, virtual desktops in the scope of the assessment. You must include the operating system version of all devices. For example, Windows 10 devices, but what you need here is where it says here, version number 20H2. That's the version number that we need, because if you haven't got the most recent version numbers of your operating systems, they may not be covered by the support for Windows. Therefore, you would fail. I know Mac only cover, I think it's 2 or 3 of the last versions. So if they're not supported, then it's an automatic fail. Or it's worth saying as well, if you've got lots of computers, you can upload an evidence file, like a CSV file, with everything listed, and we have to trawl through all of them to make sure that every single one is compliant, which can take some time. So this is often one that people don't understand because they don't know what a thin client is. Basically, a thin client is a PC that's chopped down. So usually they're small little boxes, and they've got a chopped down version of the operating system, and they're usually used for repetitive tasks. So as a general rule, people don't have these. It's usually larger organizations that do, but if they do, they all need to be listed. So here, none. So that's an acceptable answer. Whereas if it was left blank, then that would be an automatic fail. Servers, same detail with servers. So you need to list what servers you've got and what operating system they've got. So for example, Microsoft Server, stop clicking on that. Microsoft Server 2019, with the hardware as well, so that we can check to make sure it's compliant. And then if you don't, then obviously speak to us first, then we'll check for you. And if it is compliant, then jobs are good. And if it's not, we'll get you to upgrade it prior to submission. Mobile devices, so that's mobile phones, tablets, that kind of thing. BYOD devices are also in scope. So if people bring their own phones and connect to your network, then that is in scope. So they also need to be compliant as well. So you need to list the phones and the operating system. Annoyingly, with Android, with iOS, they only support the latest version. So that's a big stumbling block for a lot of people. The only time they do actually support 2 is when they've just had an upgrade, and lots of people haven't transferred it over yet. So there's a few months grace where they do support 2, but usually it's only the last version. So networks. Please provide a list of all the networks in scope. This usually is if people have got multiple offices or they've got multiple people working from home. And all you need to do is just list them. If you got your head office and the rest is everybody working from home, all you need to do is say that you've got 9 people working from home, and then you list the office. But there's no need to add in things like IP addresses or anything like that, because it's just for what's in scope. Network equipment. Now this one's a bit tricky, because we have to make sure that all of your routers and firewalls comply to the standard. So that we need the make and model of each device, so that we can check to make sure they are still supported. If they're not supported, then it's an automatic fail. But as a general rule, they are supported. if you've got something there that's out of support, then it's unfortunate that you're going to have to buy a new firewall or a router to be able to be in compliance. And this is where you would have to, if you're only work from home, then you would have to have at least one of your routers provided by the ISP, so that we can check that for compliance. It will comply because ISPs don't send you out routers that they don't automatically update. But also your ISP router is also a firewall, so it comes into that as well. All cloud services are now in scope. They weren't last year, but now they are. So please include all third-party and cloud services used by your organization. So Microsoft 365 is one of the main ones, and that is all in scope. With all this here, what you list here is relevant later on when we talk about multi-factor authentication, because all cloud services need to have multi-factor authentication installed. Any that don't, if you don't have it on your cloud services, then it could potentially be a fail. If there are some cloud services that don't have the option for multi-factor authentication, you will need to list those later on in section 7, because what will happen is the National Cyber Security Centre will lean on them to make sure that they do. And it can happen very quickly. So 210, please provide the name and role of the person responsible for the information system in scope on the assessment. So here's just the name and the role. It's usually either the CEO or you've got the managing director, that kind of thing, just so we know who to contact if there's any issues. We're doing well for time. So boundary firewalls and internet gateways. So this is all to do with your boundary firewalls. So do you have a boundary firewall between your organization's internal network and the internet? That has to be a yes. If it's not, then that's an automatic fail, because anybody could just effectively walk into your network and steal all your information. So that has to be a yes. So, when corporate or user-owned devices are not connected to your organization's internal network, or how do you implement firewall controls? So that's usually through software firewalls. If you've got a Windows device, for example, all the free ones are perfectly acceptable, like Windows Defender, that is absolutely acceptable. Or you can have one of the many paid for versions as well. So it's just list them, list what you've got and how you do it. So you need to be able to implement the company's controls when you're not connected to their network. So when you first receive an internet router or hardware firewall device, has this initial password been changed? So effectively, all passwords, when you get a new device, such as your ISP router, for instance, even the one at home, change the password. You may think that, oh, it's got a really long password and it's all random character. It's not random. It's done through an algorithm. And if somebody finds out how the algorithm creates these passwords, they will be able to just find yours out straight away. So always, always change your passwords. And if you can implement multi-factor authentication, then absolutely do that on everything possible. Please describe the process for changing your firewall password. Right. This is, so long as you've got, you know how to do it. It's not, we're not looking for you log into, then put in the IP address of your router. What we're looking for, all we're looking for here is that you know how to do it. So describing the process, the firewall is integrated into the router to change the password, log in as the administrator. So this person here, I won't mention his name, but it's Peter. He's clearly demonstrated he knows how to change the password. So he's not bluffed it or not misunderstood the question, which happens frequently. People just don't understand them, which is why we're always here to help. Any questions, just let us know. And then, is the new firewall password configured to meet the password-based authentication requirements? So in the documents of IT infrastructure, it does tell you what the requirements are for passwords. So these are the options, tick the box, whichever one's relevant. Multi-factor authentication, excellent. That's the best thing you can do, because it's hard for somebody to get hold of your fingerprint. Or you've got the you can have the security cards, or you can implement the tokens that you get through on your phone app, things like that. So, do you change your firewall password when you know or suspect it has been compromised? Absolutely always yes. If you ever suspect any password's been compromised, change it. Not only that, if, for example, you were to use the password on other things, change it there as well. It's worthwhile every so often. If one password's been compromised, you know it's been compromised, change all of your passwords to something completely different. Just on the off chance, if you know they've got one, they may have found another one. So change them all. So, do you have any services enabled that can be accessed externally through your internet router, hardware firewall, or software firewall? So that's things like, for example, a VPN. That is a service that you're basically you're broadcasting outwards. Obviously, people can log in, but they have to know how to log in. You can select, for example, only a certain IP address can log in. So if the answer is yes or no, it doesn't really matter, so long as you've got a business case for it. And obviously, if somebody's logging into your network via a VPN, as long as you've got a business case for it, it's fine. An FTP server, so that's if you've got files that people are trying to access, and you can do the same through that as well. You can access it via known IP addresses, things like that. So yeah, yes or no, doesn't matter, so long as you can justify the use for it. It's just that you're broadcasting these services onto the internet, so a hacker can see that as well, and they might be able to get in if for example, something's not patched, or they've got a 0-day attack, something like that. Firewall service block. Have you configured your boundary firewall so that they block all the services from being advertised on the internet? So your firewall, for example, for the VPN, it broadcasts regardless. If you're not using that, you need to make sure that on your firewall, it does not allow anything out that it shouldn't. So, are your boundary firewalls configured to allow access to their configuration settings over the internet? I know it sounds No, why would you do that? If somebody uses an MSP, for instance, your IT service provider might be the one to dial in to your firewall to be able to change the password, to be able to change the configuration, and they would do that from the internet. So whether you put yes or no, it's not a problem. You can still compliant, so long as you have a justification for it. See that there, it jumps a few questions, goes from 4.8 to 4.11, and all it's doing is making sure that you can justify having that configuration settings being able to be accessed over the internet. As long as you can justify it, it's still a pass. Do you have software firewalls enabled on all your computers, laptops, and servers? Absolutely, you should. And again, software firewalls, so long as you've got one and it's regularly updated, it doesn't matter. It can be one of the free ones or it can be one of the paid ones. It doesn't matter. So obviously, this guy here uses WebRoot. Installed on all endpoints. I'm not sure whose this one is. But yeah, they're all just as good as each other. So I plumb for the free one myself. So secure configuration. Removed unused software. Where you're able to do so, have you removed or disabled all the software that you do not use on your laptops, desktop computers, thin clients, and cloud services? Basically, all the stuff like games and so that you won't use on your work computers, just get rid of them. There's no need to have them there. Say you've got, I don't know, a version of Candy Crush on your computer that's not used, so therefore it's an old version, then you might find a hacker has found a vulnerability within that, and they'll be able to log into your computer through unused software that you don't use and haven't upgraded because you don't use it. So just get rid of everything you don't use and only have the stuff that you do is the best option. Have you ensured that all of your laptops, computers and servers, tablets, mobile devices, and cloud services only contain necessary user accounts that are regularly used in the course of your business? So what that's saying is pretty much get rid of all the default accounts. Usually there's a default administration account and a default user account, guest accounts, things like that. Put your own in first, then delete the old ones, because the default passwords for these accounts, you can just Google it and it will tell you. So somebody could just log into your computer as an admin, and yeah, not a lot you can do about it if the account's still there and active and they know the password. Have you changed the default password on all your administrator accounts on your laptops, computer servers, for password-based authentications as of Cyber Essentials? So what that says, make sure you've changed all default passwords. I'd just get rid of default accounts and use your accounts with your passwords. It's the easiest way of doing it. Do you run external services that provide access to data that should not be made public to users across the internet? It doesn't matter whether you do or do not, so long as you can justify doing it. Obviously, don't do it if you don't have to. But if you've got offices all over the country and you've got a central server that's got all the information in and people need to dial in, then you have to. But you need a business case for it. So it's if yes, which option of password-based authentication do you use? And here, A, the best one, multi-factor authentication. Definitely. Always, always multi-factor authentication. So 5.6, describe the process in place for changing passwords when you believe they've been compromised. This person is obviously a larger company because they've got a SOC team, which is Security Operations Center. So they will require the user to change the directory password. So they've obviously got an active directory, and the whichever users had their password compromised has to then change their password, and that's overseen by the SOC team. Oh, I think 3 hours was somewhat ambitious. We'll finish way before then. Yeah. So, external service brute force. We're not using multi-factor authentication. Which options do you use to protect your external services from brute force attack? So, brute force attack is when somebody continually guesses your password. So they know your username because usually it's your email address. So you've got the email address, and then they'll often use a program which puts in a password one after the other, after the other, after the other. They can do in a minute. They can probably do 1,000 guesses. So this person here uses multi-factor authentication, and it will lock accounts after 5 login attempts that are unsuccessful. So that's the key, locking the accounts. So after so many attempts have failed, it locks the account, even if it's, you lock it for a length of time, a few minutes to hours, or completely. So they have to reset their password. That's all acceptable, because that then prevents these programs from continually guessing. Somehow I've managed to draw on here. Don't know how I've done that. How do I get rid of that? Erase. Here we go. Sorted. Right. So device locking. When a device requires a user to be present, do you set a locking mechanism on your device to access the software and services installed? This can be, the normal screen lock. So as soon as you leave your desk, you press Windows and L. That will lock your screen. So that when you want to come back in again, you have to put in a PIN number, password, or multi-factor authentication just to get back in again. Or there's another one which I've been trying to set up, but my Bluetooth doesn't work on my phone for some reason. And so that when you're within range of your computer, your Bluetooth on your phone knows you're nearby, and it automatically unlocks your phone or unlocks your computer. And then when you step away, it automatically locks it as well, which is something, being a bit geeky, I quite like it, but sadly, it's not working. So yeah, that needs to be implemented so that, even it doesn't have to be technical controls. So all you need to do is press the lock screen, off you walk, come back in, put your PIN number in, sorted. So device locking method, yeah. Which method do you use? So it's login password or multi-factor authentication. Security updates. Do you want to take a break now, Sean?
I was just going to say, actually, if you just want to stop sharing your screen there for a second so we can see everybody on the screen.
Yep.
Just makes it easier. There's an awful lot of technical talk here, and I've sort of like I've picked up on a few bits as I've
Yep.
been going along.
Oh, we've got plenty of questions. Yeah.
Yeah, a few questions, sorry, and then we'll have a 5 minute, we'll have a quick 5 minute comfort break. Go and fill a cup of tea up, or a cup of coffee, or water. Go and use the bathroom, whatever it may be that you need. But in one of your presentations right early on, you talked about patch. It said patch management.
Yeah.
Can you
That is
explain
actually
what that
the
is?
next section. Patch
Oh,
management.
right, okay. Okay, I'll wait for that then. Chris, you put some notes in there in the chat room. Could you just sort of expand on what you was obviously putting in there, just so that you've got everyone else knows what you was putting out?
Yeah, so probably Leon is going to do this anyway, right? But at the beginning, he basically, obviously, he put up the slide talking about the 5 main controls, right? And obviously he's going through those main control areas in detail now, right? One of the things I think would be really good is if people go away with a clear understanding of what the 5 controls are in a simple way, Leon, right? So because if we manage to get those 5 control areas into people's heads, we'd be really achieving something, wouldn't we?
Yeah.
So it was just really a call to just summarize those briefly at some point, Leon.
Yeah. So
right?
at the end, if we go through the document I've got, the quick reference guide that I made up, we go through that, and that'll briefly summarize the 5
Perfect.
controls.
Okay. And then the other thing I was just asking Leon was that people I can't tell you how, and people, some cases their email system has been hacked, right? Are you able to say what you think are the main ways, if you like, or that people are getting hacked like that?
Yeah, one would certainly be in the messaging for LinkedIn. Somebody sends you a request or a message, and it says, "Oh, download this link," or "click on this picture," or something like that. There's a whole sort of malware sort of industry, as it were, called steganography, which is hiding malware in documents. So it's PDF documents, images, things like that. And you click on it, the image can pop up, but what it's also doing is it's downloading software in the background. And that could be sending the hacker directly your passwords. It could be the malware just blocking your account. That's certainly one way of them doing it.
Don't forget the recent one was the "I've got a proposal for you" that was on the LinkedIn one. I've got a proposal, so it sends you're obviously interested because somebody's gone, "Oh, I've got a proposal for you." If you don't know the person it's come from, just ignore it, delete the message, because that's how a lot of people's LinkedIn pages were getting hacked and taken over and losing all their info and bits like that. But don't forget, you can also set multi-factor authentication on your LinkedIn page as well. So I would highly recommend that you do that if you haven't done it already.
Yeah, multi-factor authentication all the way, for sure. If it's an option, do it. Absolutely.
Well, yes, and so I'd just like to sometimes when I'm like describing this, Leon, I'll sort of say that what the software is doing, it's sort of like ET phones home, isn't it? Because it's basically sending back to, it's like sending the message back to the what the hacker server or whatever it is. Hey, this person has opened your thing. Fire off the malware to them.
Yeah, it's called a reverse shell, where they send the software to you, because to get through your firewall, they can't get in. So what they do is they send you a message, you open up the attachment, which then downloads the software, which then calls them back. But because it's going the other way through the firewall from them to the hacker, that the hacker just it just pops up on the hacker screen, said, "Yep, we've got a connection." And then they can do whatever they want. It's really, really bad.
Yeah, thanks for that, Leon. I think that hopefully that will just help people, and if I could just get a little plug in for Lujam here, of course, right? In exactly the situation that Kelly described was what made me understand that Lujam was a powerful device, because when somebody sent me that LinkedIn message saying, "Hi, Chris, it's so and so, we're first level connections, i.e., we're great buddies, and I've got this proposal for us to work together. So please click on this link." I did.
Oh,
Yeah, I did. Right. But the thing was that Lujam basically then set the alarm bells off, and it went, you ain't going there, because it was a known bad site. Yeah. So that was just to mention that as well, because along with all of the other things that you kindly said about Lujam.
yeah, it's really good because it monitors everything, so that if you do go onto a dodgy site, it tells you. If you're going to try and download something that's dodgy, it will tell you. If something's been downloaded that shouldn't be and it's installed on your device, it will tell you. So if a hacker tries to get a reverse shell, then it will tell you. Yeah.
Exactly. Thank you, Lou. Yeah. I see Ian's got a hand
I
up.
was going to say Ian's got his hand up there. So Ian,
I was just going to ask, because Kelly mentioned this authentication thing for LinkedIn about 5 minutes ago. So, how is that something you need to go into settings in LinkedIn to do, or does anybody know how you can do that?
Yeah.
You do.
Yeah.
I've got some instructions for that. I'll send them over to you.
Oh, brilliant! Thanks
Or
very much.
if I can find them, I'll put it in the chat.
Right, fantastic.
I think it was in the document, unless Chris, you've got a quick access to that document I wrote for LinkedIn.
Sorry, Kel, I haven't got quick access.
No worries.
You'll be quicker than me.
I'll find the document that I wrote for LinkedIn that was sent out, and I'll put it in the chat so everybody's got access to that. I'll do that now.
Thank you very much. Thanks.
thank you. Okay, any more questions at all for Leon? Okay, a couple of minute break, 5 minutes, just before we get into the last parts of the session here. Go and grab yourself a cup of tea, glass of water, whatever it is that what takes your fancy. If say need to use the ladies and gents, whatever it may be, please feel free to use this time just to get yourself comfortable again before we finalise the last part of it. And then, of course, if there's any further questions from between when we come back and the end, we can pick up those questions with Leon at the end. Also use the chat if you want to ask a question, and we can obviously make sure that Leon is aware of any questions that you are wanting to pose towards him. So 5 minutes. See you back here at 3:05. Go and get yourself a refreshment. We'll speak to you very soon.
If anybody just wants to chew the fat, I'm here.
Hi, Chris.
Callan, how you doing?
All right, thanks. Yeah,
Yeah. How's it going so far?
yeah. It's interesting. The only couple of questions that I have, which I'll ask again later, is does this relate to, well, particularly the GDPR, relate to limited companies only?
No, I'm going to say no, but Leon obviously will tell us definitely.
Okay.
But I think the whole point here is, Carolyn, is right. There's and I sort of just made this point actually in a question here, is that that there are people, you know, that are going to have, for example, Cyber Essentials, right, and GDPR certification, right? You know, like for example, if they're working with government, you know, the
Oh
government
gosh,
will.
yes.
Yeah, I mean, a government will just tell them, you know, you can't have a contract with us unless you've got this, and that's the end of it. So there's people who've got to have it, right? And then there's people that should have it and agree and therefore get it, right? And then there's people that should have it and probably don't agree, if you like, and don't get it, you know. And I think so. I think the whole point of this is just to, you know, encourage those people that don't necessarily have to have it, right? but it should be a good thing, you know, and just to emphasize that, okay, you know, I mean, there's a lot of questions to go through here with Cyber Essentials, and you've got
Oh
to
yes.
get,
Oh gosh, yes.
yeah,
It's a
and you've got to-
minefield.
yeah, and you've got to get Cyber Essentials before you can get. I keep forgetting what IASB are calling it now, but it includes GDPR certification, right?
But it is worth noting that anybody who stores personal information needs to be registered with the ICO, because I do
Well,
think people
Yes,
forget
because
that.
I did check with them, because obviously I have names and addresses of people, my
Yep.
customers and other customers. And I
Absolutely.
did check with them. They said do the online assessment, which I duly did. And because I'm not a limited company, and because my earnings were below a certain criteria, and because I answered a couple of questions that they asked how the information was stored, I don't actually need to be GDPR registered with the
That's
Yeah.
good, because a lot of people don't even go through that process. You know, it's worth checking, because if you don't check,
Yeah.
you could end up with a big fine. Doesn't matter who you are.
Absolutely,
If
absolutely.
you have to, and I mean, if you do need it, it's literally 40 quid a year.
Yeah.
35 if you pay by direct debit. I mean, and I know that because I am a limited company, so
Yeah.
I am aware that it could save you a fortune in the long run.
Absolutely, absolutely.
GDPR
I mean, I
and
was,
ICO
I
registration
have
are
to,
separate though, it's not the
fines.
same thing.
yeah.
Sorry, say that again.
The GDPR and ICO registration are not the same thing though. So everyone's got
No.
through the GDPR stuff.
Yeah.
The ICO is the grey area.
Yes.
So I did the same as you, Carolyn. I filled it out all in the SES system, did the test. No, I don't need to. I hired someone to do my GDPR. She did the test. No, I don't need to. She wasn't convinced. She phoned the guys at the GDPR at ICO and said, this is the situation. And they said, well, she doesn't have to. It wouldn't do any harm to register. Is it a yes or is it a no?
So
that's
very
not
grey
good.
area, isn't it?
Very, very, very well. At least
So-
you've got it that says, you know, we don't need,
Yep.
you don't need it, then you're covered, aren't you? If anything comes back
Yeah,
to you, it's
so
like, I
it's- so
did
some
it.
of the-
Did you actually register then, Angela?
No, I didn't.
Right.
No, well,
Well,
save yourself 30 quid.
It's a really good point actually, Kelly. Oh, Leon's back now. Have you heard this question, Leon?
Which one?
I was asking whether both the GDPR and this cyber essentials, whether it was for companies that are limited companies, or whether it's for companies that do over a certain value of turnover per year, or does it encapsulate everyone?
It encapsulates everybody.
Okay.
Yeah, it's you don't even have to be registered at the company's house. It could be just you on your own, just doing whatever you're doing. Yeah, so it's not even restricted to UK. It could be abroad as well.
Right.
Yeah, so literally anybody can do it.
Okay.
But then sorry, Colin, did I interrupt you? No. So then, Leon, we were just getting into a bit of a debate about, you know, whether you need or can get, you know, GDPR and you need to register with the ICO as well, and under what circumstances. And then an example was brought up by Angela.
Yeah, I think it's the ICO determine whether you do or do not need to register with them.
Well, apparently not.
It's a very grey area, and you know, I have done a course, but although I did the course, it was slightly, I couldn't grasp it. So like Angela, I contacted the ICO and I also did their assessment. You would have thought though that anybody that holds data of name, address, phone number of own clients and somebody else's clients, that you would be liable, but obviously not. It's such a grey area, and I think quite wrong that it's a grey area.
Yeah, you're right. It shouldn't
It's
be
very
a grey
ambiguous,
area,
isn't
and
it?
it should be a matter of. I think it should be, if you hold anybody's details, then you should have to register. And
I mean, mine are locked in a safe, so
Yeah.
you know, and every customer that I take details of, I clearly tell them the information will not pass my four walls, and they're kept locked away. So they're aware that I'm compliant in that way. But going on, you know, with GDPR and the ICO, it seems awfully strange that both yourself, Angela, and myself, which similar because you have clients, don't you? You have the data of your clients, that you don't have to register.
Yeah, it does seem odd. I to be fair, I probably would register anyway, just in case, because it is a grey area. The court, if something were to happen, and the courts would turn around and say, "Well, why aren't you registered?" and you go, "Well, it was a grey area. I didn't think I needed to." Then you know you could be for the chopping block and have a massive fine, all for the
Well,
same.
but at the same time, both Carol and I have done their online assessment tool on the ICO website that says you do not require to register. So we do have an answer, even if it is that grey area where, as I said, the ICO came back to my GDPR special and said
to the courts to say that we did this. That covers your back really more than anything else.
But I suppose for the sake of 30, 40 quid, to be safe, one could just register with the ICO.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I was just thinking that. I was just thinking, Carolyn, right? You know, having unfortunately been in court, you know, over various things in my long and illustrious history, you know, it would just be typical, wouldn't it? You know, you get into a court and you go, "Oh, well, it was a grey area, so I didn't register," and they'll go, "Well, if it was a grey area, you should have registered." Oh, well, thank you very much.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. Yeah, it's an interesting topic, and something that I asked questions when GDPR was first mooted, way back. And you know, touch wood, I'm touching a table. You know, I have never had any issues, and anything that data that I keep online, if somebody says, right, I want to unsubscribe, their details gets deleted, end of, and their form gets shredded. But I'm sure there are people that don't do that, possibly, and perhaps have the forms lying around so anybody can have a look if they have visitors or get burgled or whatever. You know, it's all looking a bit sort of something that might very well not happen, but you have to think of those things, don't you, to keep yourself safe?
Absolutely. I think it's a really great subject. And Leon, remind me, so you have to have Cyber Essentials before you can go on to, is it called Cyber Assurance now?
Yes, yeah. It used to be, when it was IASME governance, they came together. However, now you've got to have Cyber Essentials first before you can then go on and do Cyber Assurance.
And when you do Cyber Assurance, there's something to do with GDPR included in that, correct?
Yes, yeah, that covers GDPR compliance, yeah.
Right, exactly, yeah. So that that just we're not going into Cyber Assurance, are we, today? But no, but just to make people aware, then there is this other certification called Cyber Assurance, as opposed to Cyber Essentials, and that has within it GDPR compliance.
Yes,
just to let people know that.
So right, is everybody back? Shall we continue?
I do believe we are.
Yeah,
right,
I'll
I think we're all back.
share my screen again.
We'll crack on.
We're nearly there. There's 8 sets of questions, So we're on 6 now, so we're nearly there. And then we can sort of go through it, summarize it so that it's not so read off the screen as it is. But
So it's not going to be 3 hours then, Leon, right?
no, we put 3 hours down just because this is the first one and we didn't know how long it would take.
Okay.
So that to make sure that we definitely got it all. But then afterwards we can go through things like scenarios of what the latest hackers have been doing and how to avoid the pitfalls, that kind of thing.
That's great, mate. No, that's great.
Yeah, that'd be really helpful for everyone, I'm sure.
Yeah. So what were we on about? Patch management was the next one, wasn't it? So yeah. Supported operating systems. Are all of your systems and firmware on your devices supported by vendors with regular security updates? So that's the patches that we're on about. So you have to have the latest versions and all the patches, because if you look at Windows updates, I regularly, even though it's got the automatic updates, I always make sure on at least once a week, click on it to make sure that everything's up to date. Is all your software on your devices supported by a supplier that produces regular fixes and security problems? That's not the operating system, that's everything else. So if you use, whatever software you use, like Microsoft Word, for instance, is that licensed and have the security updates put on it? Please list your internet browsers, and that has to include the version numbers. So even though these aren't the latest versions, they were at the time. So you can work out when this was done. I think it's 108 or 109 now for Chrome version. So yeah, you need the version number to make sure that we can see that it's being updated. That's all it's for. Please list your malware protection. So yeah, this company uses Webroot, whereas I use Windows Defender. It's free, and there's no harm in using a free one, because I find Windows Defender is probably the better one anyway. Even though they've had issues recently, the last few days there was an update for Windows Defender and it's crashed a lot of things. I think Microsoft Teams hasn't been working properly the last few days. Please list your email applications. So Office 365. If you use Office 365, we know that is always updated because it's a software as a service. That it's no matter what, it will be the latest version. You can't get an unpatched version of that. Whereas if you use the downloaded version of, say, Outlook, then it might not be updated. So for that one, you would need the version number. Please list all your Office applications that are used to create your organizational data. So this person's got Microsoft 365, but they've also got Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and projects. I think they've listed all those, not realizing that they're all part of Microsoft 365. But the thing is, the more information, the better. Maybe it's they only use those as part of 365, and they don't use the other stuff. Maybe. So, is all the software licensed in accordance with the publisher's recommendations? Has to be a yes, otherwise it will fail. Because if you don't use it licensed, then it's potentially what they term as jailbroken, which means it's an unlicensed version, and it could whoever hacked it to make it unlicensed potentially could have put malware in there, and they could watch your every move, which isn't so good. Are all high risk and critical security updates for your operating system and firmware installed within 14 days of release? That is a must. Because what what happens is you get either somebody's been hacked and they've worked out how they've done it, or you get what's called an ethical hacker, which is somebody who does things like bug bounty programs, which will go onto software and search for bugs and try and get into the system. And if they can, what they do is they inform the supplier, and then they'll patch the system. And if for example, somebody had this software and they managed to get in into somebody's network because they found the vulnerability within the software, then that becomes then a CVE, critical vulnerability, which then is listed. If it's Windows, for example, then you'll get the regular updates, and that then gets patched. And as soon as that patch is released, it needs to be put in within 14 days, so that as soon as it's found and a CVE number is created, it's published. So I don't know if you recall Log4j. I think it was Christmas before last. This Log4j, effectively all it was a library file which was very generic. It was used for lots of things, and they found a vulnerability in it where somebody could just take over your entire machine just by logging into it. And because it was published, it was put in the news, and then all hell broke loose. Instead of not publishing it in the news, but it was published as a CVE, and they then patched it as soon as they could. But that time between it being published and being patched, they effectively told all the hackers out there that this was a vulnerability. Just feel free to go and hack into everybody's computer you want to, which is why Log4j became extremely notorious. So yeah, what they need to do is not publicize it. They need to fix it first, then publicize it. So by the time it's fixed, then there's no issue. They can tell who they want. But because they didn't do it with Log4j, then there was it was a massive thing in the news that it was just as people were going on their Christmas holidays, and then they found out all their servers were open for the hackers just to walk in, and so there was an uproar about that. But yeah, so within 14 days of release, your system should be patched. They say 14 days because that gives it a few days before, once it's released, somebody tries it, and if there's any issues with it, then they can redo the patch. So as long as within the 14 days, you're good. They'll have ironed out any issues within it. Are all updates applied for your operating systems using auto updates? Definitely yes. It doesn't have to be, but you have to, if it's a no, then you have to explain how you then do it. If you do it manually, then it's still not a problem, as long as it's done within 14 days. Where auto updates are not being used, how do you ensure that high-risk critical updates are patched within 14 days? This person here, their third-party contractor checks every 14 days to make sure any release patches are implemented. So are all high-risk or critical security updates, or for applications, so it's not your operating system, it's other applications installed within 14 days of release. So it's exactly the same. So any other applications that you've got that you've downloaded all need to be, the critical updates need to be updated within 14 days. And again, are those done by auto updates? Then where auto updates are not, how do you do it? Have you removed any applications on your devices that are no longer supported? This happens quite regularly. A bit of software is released, regular patches are done for it, and then after so long, they've brought out a new application, but the one that you're using doesn't receive the updates anymore, in which case it should be removed. If not, you can still use it, but you have to put it on a separate network that doesn't have access to your main network, where all your business files, company data, all that's stored. There you go. So where unsupported software is in use, have those devices been removed or to a segregated subnet and internet access removed? How do you achieve this? So the vast majority of people don't use unsupported software. But yeah, if you have to, then there are a few ways of doing it. If you need to, it's a bit technical, so we'll discuss that separately, so that people don't switch off. So that was patching. So has anybody got any questions while we're there on patch management? Nope. Or some questions in the chat. I've had a pleasure to get called white hat hackers. Yeah. So Cornelia, do you want to explain what you've put on there on the chat?
Okay. A white hat hacker.
Yeah.
Had contacted me and told me that something was not right. To be honest, I wasn't really amused that I got an email from a hacker.
Yeah.
And it was during the time that the HP was having my laptop for maintenance sent to Poland. How stupid it can be, but okay. The Belgium HP department has a factory in Poland. So during the appearance of having my laptop not under my control, and I also had set back everything to the factory settings. So for me, the only thing that could happen was that someone was really trying to get through with my hard disk, because I had set it back to factory settings, but there was someone probably during the fact that it was sent by UPS HP Belgium to their factory for repair in Poland. And during that time, I've been approached by someone who told me by email in a stupid Gmail address that he found something. So I was a little bit, it's not ladylike to say, but I was a little bit pissed off. And then I just contacted Microsoft support because I've in direct subscription with them, not through a third party.
Yeah.
And they have searched it out for me. But the fact is that finally it came out, it was a DMARC issue. So that's something that protects your domain at a level of, let's say, GoDaddy or Bluehost or whatever, where you have your domain from. So I didn't know anything about that, but I've learned a lot. But I'm still a little bit suspicious about having everything, keeping everything confidential. And that's why I said to Carolyn, I love an old-fashioned safe, because it is, for me, more or less very difficult to guarantee everyone, everything, every safety, because if someone can hack it, I don't think it can be done by an assessment. It's nice if you have something like that, because it protects your liability. But in fact, technical stuff is something that's far beyond my head.
Yeah, with the DMARC issue, because I had somebody contact me as well about this. He put in some pictures saying that, oh yeah, you don't have this in place, so we were able to send emails from your domain to himself, because I didn't have the DMARC controls in place, which is rubbish, because I use Microsoft 365 for my
Me too.
and they don't use DMARC at all. So he was talking
Yes.
rubbish. I
Yes.
told him this and told him I was going to report him, yeah, never heard from him again. I think it's just you know, people thinking that they're just trying to get money out of you, effectively, saying that,
Yes.
oh, we found this issue when there was no issue to find. Yeah. So
But what I'm wondering, Leon, if I may, I am in a very unusual situation.
Yeah.
I have a company in the United States. I am physically in Belgium, and I'm working with clients all over the world. And when I'm launching, I also have a special campaign in the UK.
Yeah.
Okay, so that means that I have to, and I start when I have my UK VAT number, you know. So the fact is, when I have that in place, the problem is that if I'm going to go through this, I am not a UK LTD, I'm a US LLC.
Yeah.
So it's a foreign-owned alien non-citizen member of an LLC, and the business in the UK is always going through, although I have a bank account that accepts sterling, it's always going to be a B2C or B2B, of course, but
yeah,
it's going out of Britain. So is this something I should do too?
Well, Cyber Essentials doesn't restrict you by country. Anybody in the world can do it. The only thing you won't qualify for is the free cyber insurance. But yeah, it's not a problem. Anybody around the world can get the certification. But I must say, if you don't want to do the certification, but you want to implement the controls, not a problem. On my website, you can just download the questions. Feel free just to answer the questions, and I'll go through it and mark it as per the requirements, let you know if there are any issues. And then although you won't get the certification, it's free, and you'll know you'll sort of adhere to the standard.
Okay, thanks. But when I would go for the certification after that, or after all,
Yeah.
would I qualify as a non-British citizen, having a United States LLC? I mean, yeah.
Yeah, it's not a problem. Recently, I've certified some companies. One's in Italy, and I think one in Austria as well.
Okay.
So yeah, your geographical location doesn't really matter. The only thing that you won't do is qualify for the free cyber indemnity insurance.
Okay, that's because I'm not a British citizen.
No, it's because your company's not domiciled within the UK.
Okay.
There are criteria for that. We'll get onto it a bit later on, but the company has to be domiciled within the UK. You have to have a turnover of less than £20 million, and also it has to be the whole company that's in the scope.
I'm not eligible exactly about the second second thing. So
Yeah, but certification's not a problem. It's just a free cyber indemnity insurance that'll you'll not
Okay.
get. That's all.
okay.
If
And
I
I will
could
go
just,
to your website. Thank you.
yeah, if I could just, people may find this interesting. So some people know that I got suspended on LinkedIn for my pro-Ukrainian, anti-Russian comments and that, and so I got into a bit of a spat with LinkedIn, and I basically said to them, right, I'm going to issue a subject access request for all of my data
Yeah.
now, and I discovered that in fact, right, so anybody that's on LinkedIn that's in the EU, your data controller is in Ireland.
Yeah.
Right. For the UK, of course, since we're not in the EU, right, our data controller is California.
Oh, right.
Yeah. Which is, but anyway, the sort of interesting thing was that I hit them with a UK subject access request, and they responded and sent me all my data.
Oh, they actually sent it to you, did they?
Yeah,
Oh, excellent. That's good.
yeah. I mean, I don't know what for. I haven't even opened the files, mate. It's like, you know, huge zip files. But yeah. Anyway, so the US responded to my subject access request.
Yeah, actually, within UK, within IASME Cyber Assurance, data access requests are all part of that as well, because it covers the GDPR. Then that's all part and parcel of that.
Okay, great. Thanks ever so much for answering those questions. We'll crack on with the final parts of the form.
Let's get back to it. So, user access control. So, user account creation. Are users only provided with user accounts after a process has been followed to approve their creation? Describe the process. So, this is users only need user accounts. Admin need admin accounts, but admin also need user accounts as well, which we come on to in a second. So describe the creation. This guy's put in, user accounts are created during the onboarding process and given the relevant access level according to their job role. All accounts are approved at director level, which is pretty much the standard answer for this question, which most people do, or a variant thereof. It just shows that there is a process. There has to be a formal process in giving people accounts. Otherwise, you know, anybody could, you know, mistakenly get an account just by, you know, emailing somebody, which is a definite no-no. So yeah, there has to be a proper process for it. Are all users and administrative account accessed by ensuring unique username and password? That absolutely has to be a yes. So that prevents, you know, users and admin users having the same accounts with passwords, or people using other people's accounts, which is a massive no-no. Which if that was to happen, that would automatically fail, because that's really bad. Do you ensure you have deleted or disabled any accounts of staff who are no longer with the organization? We have a very static staff turnover, so they don't have many people leaving, but on occasion where people have left, either our office manager or myself have deleted all accounts and logins. So yeah, as soon as there should be an offboarding process, and as a part of that, deactivation. What you would normally do is, as soon as somebody leaves, deactivate their login. I wouldn't delete the account, just in case, you know, they come back in a day or two. You go, oh, the grass isn't greener on the other side. But then also have access to the data just in case, you know, they were processing some information on their last day. And if you delete their account, you delete that as well. But after a certain period of time, leave it so that, yeah, deactivate, then delete their account after all the information has been gathered from it. Do you ensure that all staff have the privileges that they need for their current job? And how do you do this? So this is done by the principle of least privilege, so that people only have the level of privilege that they need to do their job role. It's like, you know, if somebody was a sales guy and they had admin privileges, then yeah, something's amiss there, and you would want to control that. So yeah, always have this guy's put all accounts and access levels are unique to the job role and must be approved by director level. So yeah, they give people just what they need for their job role, no more. Administration accounts. Here we go. Do you have a formal process for giving somebody access to the system at administrator level? And can you confirm how this is recorded? Right. So he's put administrative level access is done by the IT department only, and only for administrative purposes. That's textbook answer. This is obviously a bigger company. They've got their own IT department. And as I said before, even admin users need user accounts as well, so that admin accounts are only used for admin purposes. Because if you're, for example, if you're the admin and you use your admin account for everything, then if somebody hacks into your account, then they've automatically got admin privileges, and it's to try and prevent that. How do you ensure that admin accounts are used only to carry out administrative tasks, such as installing software and making configuration changes? You go, administration level access is done by the IT department only. Yeah, so what they're trying to do here is, obviously this company here, they've got their own IT department and they do all the admin. So you may not have that. It may be just you. So you've got the two accounts. So you're looking at for things like tuition based, or you've got group sort of access levels. So to prevent the what they call it, is where you the settings in Windows dictate who can and cannot do certain things, and you want to make sure that the admin accounts can't or don't, for example, surf the web, because if you're surfing the web, there is a potential for a hacker to be able to send you something they shouldn't do and gain access to your account. So even if it's written down in policy, so that it specifically states in your policies that admin accounts are only used for administrative purposes, then that's fine as well. So that it prevents, you know, people doing stuff they shouldn't do with admin accounts. How does the organization prevent administrator accounts from being used to carry out everyday tasks like browsing the web and accessing emails? This guy's put admin access is done by the IT department only, who are the only ones who can make configuration changes. It is forbidden to access emails or browse the internet for non-admin duties. So they're saying, what they're indicating there is they've got policies laid down to say that it's forbidden for admin account users to use their admin account for non-admin purposes. Do you formally track which users have admin accounts in your organization? Yes or no question, select from the drop down. And obviously any additional information you want to apply, add, just put in the applicant notes. Yeah, tracking is a must, because otherwise, if you don't track it, you could have somebody who's got administrative rights who shouldn't have, because you gave it to them temporarily. Then years later, they become disgruntled and they've got admin rights and they shouldn't have. Then they could do damage to your system. Do you review who should have administrative access on a regular basis? Yes, is definitely the answer you should have. As we just said, you want to make sure that only the people who require it have it. Password-based authentication. So, describe how you protect accounts from brute force password guessing in your organization. As we discussed earlier, lockout is what we're looking for, really, or multi-factor authentication. So they put, we use multi-factor authentication as well as having anti-malware software installed on all computers, laptops, and mobile phones. So, which technical controls are used to manage the quality of your passwords within the organization? They put, we use multi-factor authentication. I can't stipulate enough that multi-factor authentication is where it's at. It's the best way currently that you can prevent people from sort of accessing your network by guessing passwords and things like that. Because I don't know if you've noticed on things like Facebook, when people always answer the question, what's your pet's favorite name, or what's your favorite pet's name, things like that. People put answers to these questions, and all you're doing is providing hackers with answers to what potentially your password could be. So they've got use multi-factor authentication, making sure the passwords are at least 12 characters, with a minimum of 8 characters, including numbers and special characters. Yeah, textbook answer. I think they've cut and paste that from the IT infrastructure documents. Please explain how you encourage people to use unique and strong passwords. Yep, we encourage people to use passwords. Yeah, not use passwords such as pets' names, addresses, towns. Yeah, use special characters and numbers. Yeah, so yeah, what we're looking for there is, so you block certain password types, and you're implementing special characters, numbers, things like that. This is all laid down in the IT infrastructure document. But also, how do you encourage people? Think you can put in things like tuition. You do cyber awareness training. You've got it laid down in policy, things like that. It's all acceptable answers. Do you have a documented password policy that includes a process for when you believe that passwords or accounts have been compromised? These do not, but we do use password generators to create passwords that are updated every 14 days. This, because they've answered no, this is a major non-compliance. It's not a fail, because you're allowed up to 2 major non-compliances within the assessment. Have you enabled multi-factor authentication on all your cloud services? That's a definite yes. Is it required there? Well, actually, saying that it's not definite. That would also be, I think, a major non-compliance. However, the next one is, has MFA been applied to all administrator accounts on your cloud services? So if that one's a no as well, then obviously that would also be a major non-compliance. And because there's more questions on this, then they would all be no, therefore you would fail. So applying MFA is by far and away the best thing you can do. Yes, if you to put no for this, then there's more questions. Then what you have to list what you haven't put it on for, and then you'd get a major non-compliance for that as well. And also you would have the National Cybersecurity Centre would be knocking on the doors of the people who don't have MFA as an option. So malware protection. Before we go to the next section, has anybody got any questions on the previous section? On use of MFA or anything like that? Nothing in the chat, is there? Can we get a record of this recording of this event? Yes, you can. Yep. So malware protection. This is a bit of a sticking point for some people as well. Do you use anti-malware protection software? Tick yes, because you absolutely should do. I think it's a fail question. If I look on there, 8.1. Oh, no, if you don't, then it's a major non-compliance. But if you use laptops, PCs, servers, you want anti-malware software on there for sure. Also, if you have mobile devices, always tick yes for B as well, because the App Store is the software whitelisting effectively. So if it's on the App Store, then it's been checked, even though I know Apple, they check theirs thoroughly. To get an application on the Apple's App Store, you have to submit the code, the software in its code form, so that they can make sure that you're not installing malware into your apps. The Android store's not so hot on that. However, if they do find out that you are installing malware into your apps, then they will come down on you like a ton of bricks. But you don't have to submit the source code first. C is often not ticked, but that's application sandboxing. So for those who don't know, application sandboxing is you segregate a bit of your network so that it can't access your main network, and you can test software in that. You can if, for example, somebody sends you a document that you're unsure about, you can open it in your sandbox, and then if it tries to call out to the hacker, then it can't do. It's segregated. So if you use that, then click that. But there are questions on these as well. So obviously related to selection A, where you have anti-malware software installed, is it set to update and do daily scans automatically? You select yes or no from the drop-down menu. Where you have anti-malware software installed, is it set to scan web pages you visit and warn you about accessing malicious websites? Absolutely, you want yes, because yeah, the amount of dodgy software, dodgy websites out there is quite phenomenal. Don't know if anybody's accessed the dark web, but yeah, it's an eye-opener. So this is on about section B, where you use the App Store or application signing. Are users restricted from installing unsigned applications? So yeah, selecting B actually indicates that you haven't jailbroken the phone, which I know some people do because they get to install applications which are not allowed through the App Store. And there's a reason they're not allowed through the App Store, is because they've got malicious software on them. And where you're using an App Store or application signing, do you ensure that only installed applications that have been approved by your organization and And do you document a list of approved applications? So effectively within your organization, you just need a list of software that you can download from the App Store. They're not bothered in the slightest what version of Candy Crush you use. But so long as, if you use things like Word or whatever on your phone, that it's on the approved list, then you're fine. So that concludes the questions. But for the cyber indemnity insurance, there is, I don't know if anybody noticed, but section 3 was missing. Section 3 is about the cyber indemnity insurance. I didn't put the questions on here because they're fairly sort of, it just asks you whether you want to opt in, whether your annual turnover is less than 20 million and the head office is domiciled within the UK, and whether you've got the whole company. So long as these are a yes, then you qualify for the free cyber indemnity insurance. Obviously, you must opt. There's a question that says, do you opt in? Because you don't have to have it if you don't want to. And there are reasons why you wouldn't want it. One of them is because if you've got your own insurance anyway, it can conflict. But if you were to use Prism Solutions to get your insurance, because it's £25,000 what you get here for free, you might think you want more, which is entirely possible, because if you're restoring your data, £25,000 is enough. If you have to do a cyber investigation, trust me, £25,000 is probably not going to be enough. I did a quote for somebody recently. It was not through me, it was through somebody else, and they quoted, I think, just to investigate the email system to make sure that they hadn't been hacked through their emails, and that came to, I think it was a minimum of 30,000, just to be able to do an investigation to see whether or not they had had a breach. But if you go through Prism Solutions, they suggest get the free insurance as well. They know that you've got the free insurance as well, and then it's a matter of, with the insurance companies, they'll decide who does what, who pays for what, effectively. So it works out your insurance through Prism Insurance would actually be cheaper as well if you've got cyber essentials as well, because they know that you've implemented the controls, therefore you're more secure than if you hadn't, therefore your insurance is cheaper. And that's it. So how long did that take? Oh, it's 2 hours. So has anybody got any more questions on anything that we have covered? We're going to go over.
I was going to say, if you just want to stop sharing the screen so that we've got a full screen of participants here, and then we can see more clearly if anybody's got any further questions. Any questions? Chris, is that your hand up or down?
Yeah, I mean, I will say something. I see a question here. What's this one about? How do you manage BOID endpoint devices? See that?
Yeah. Yeah, to manage BYOD, usually.
Does everybody know what BOID devices are?
Nope. It stands for bring your own device. That's when you've got an employee who brings their own, say, phone to work and can access their emails and company data. There's a few ways around it. You can either have in policy that they don't access certain things, or you can lock their phone to not be able to access certain things to give them access to some of it. Also, it's possible to get, I know there's software, things like, one's called Mobile Iron, and you can download that. and you can then restrict what they can and can't do on your network. And also you can have things like have the ability to remote wipe their phone, so that if you think that they've been compromised, you can just with a click of a button wipe their phone, so that any information that they have downloaded to their phone is gone, so that anybody who accesses it can't.
So yeah, so I had a couple of things here. If there's no other questions first. So first of all, Leon, I think you and I have discussed this. I'm pretty sure, right? I just wanted to address something for everybody while we're here. That there's a thing that sort of goes around, right, where people say, if I talk to them about cybersecurity, say, or somebody else does, they go, yeah, well, all my applications are in the cloud, therefore I am cyber secure. Right. And I don't know where this has come from, if you like. Well, I suppose it might be from the cloud providers, is it, Leon?
Yeah, well, the thing is, the cloud, it depends what kind of cloud service you're using, for example. I know if you use Microsoft 365, you're very much likely to use OneDrive. And it's all very well and good storing all your stuff in OneDrive, but I would implement multi-factor authentication, because the thing is, if you're just using a password, people can guess passwords. If you're using multi-factor authentication, then you've got things like a phone app, which is your phone, and it's registered to that, and it gives you a code that every time you log in, you've got to put in the code, and it's only it's updated every, I think, 90 seconds. The code changes, so you've got a small window of opportunity to put the code in, or you can use fingerprint on your phone to then authenticate into the cloud. But almost everything is going to be in the cloud at some point. It's getting bigger and bigger day by day. I know OneDrive, you've got the vault to lock away all your information, which is something I use as well. It is encrypted when it's at rest, by encrypting things such as BitLocker, and then it's encrypted in transit as well, because it uses TLS, I believe, which is like same as having an old SSL certificate. So it's certificate authentication based encryption. So it is good, don't get me wrong, but it is accessible. If you've got multi-factor authentication installed as well, then I think it's in the cloud. Doing that is as secure as you're going to get, apart from putting it in your safe, like Carolyn does. Apart from somebody breaking into your house and nicking your safe, or cutting it open with a grinder or whatever, which is entirely feasible. I've seen people do that. So nothing is 100% safe. Obviously, some things are safer than others.
Exactly, Leon. Right now, and if I may just, and Leon could correct me if I go wrong here, right? But when somebody said this to me, I went, okay, hang on a minute. Let me just think about this, right? Now, first of all, I think, we have to just understand, what does it mean to say that your applications and potentially your data are in the cloud, right? What it actually means. Well, I'll say what I think, Leon, and then you can correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, go for it.
But what it actually means, right, is that there is a server, a computer somewhere in some data center that is either processing your data, running your application, and other servers that are storing your data, probably. Correct, Leon?
Yeah. The cloud is somebody else's computer. Effectively, that's all it is. albeit usually if you go to one of the big providers like Microsoft or AWS with what's he called, Amazon,
Yeah,
then it's
Amazon Web Services. Yep.
it's all going to be in a big data center somewhere. That's usually what they do is because they back it up as well. It's usually you can stipulate how it's done. Usually in one day, if it's in one data center, it's in 3 places in that one data center, or you can stipulate it so that it's in several data centers, so that if, for example, you get hacked and all your data's gone off your computer, and then you can download it off the cloud. If it's got into the cloud as well, it's highly probable that it will, because they've segregated it, that it won't be in all of them, and you'll be able to download it from somewhere.
Yeah. Now, all right, let me just go on just to say, now, obviously, those data centers, you probably won't even know where those data centers are, right? They're very anonymous places, right? And physically, they're pretty secure places. I mean, nothing's, as you say, Leon, nothing's 100% secure. But okay, let's take that the data center itself is pretty secure, right? But, and I was trying to think how to describe this, Leon, right? But access to those servers is another matter, isn't it? Because you know, obviously you get access to them from your home or wherever you are. You know, your mum's home or your children's home or the hotel or wherever it is, right? So obviously you get access to them from there, and therefore equally other people could get access to them. Although I don't know how to describe it, Leon, right? But obviously somebody randomly on the internet trying to hack into, you know, a Microsoft 365 server is going to struggle, aren't they? You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, nothing is unhackable because nobody will guarantee something 100% because there's always new vulnerabilities found.
Exactly.
And then as soon as somebody finds a vulnerability, hopefully it's the ethical guys who found it and they report it and then they can patch it. But if it's not, and it's the bad hackers that have found it, then your data is open.
Exactly. So okay, so that was basically just to, I just wanted to like destroy this myth of, oh, I've got everything in the cloud, therefore I'm safe. Right? Yeah. And again, if I could just give a little plug for Lujam, one of the things that Lujam tells you is who is storing or who is using which application where and who is storing what data where, right? Yeah. So, but up to then, Leon, the only other thing I wanted to say to everybody here on all of our behalfs, right, is that we, ladies and gents, we are aware, right, that you may not be the person that needs to go and get cyber essentials. We all should be cyber secure, but you may not be the person, right? But what we would like you to do for us, please, if you don't mind, is be our eyes and ears, because there are people that do need to have it, right? And those people that need to have it definitely are those people that are, you know, working for government, or they need to have it because cyber insurance has told them. And Sean, hopefully you don't mind me saying this, but what I want to just let you know is that you know, everything is very low cost at the low end, folks, right? So introductory fees are a bit difficult there, but at the higher end, with bigger companies than that, it would be possible for us to give an introductory fee out. You happy with that, Leon?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And hopefully you're happy with that as well, Sean.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, at the end of the day, if we're all being a little bit more focused on helping others, which is what this is all about, then great that we can hand it over without a fee, obviously, because we're helping somebody along the way. But equally, if there's a large organisation that there is an ability to get an introducer fee passed over from you guys to them, that's a nice way of saying thank you. So yeah, no, absolutely, no problem at all.
Yeah, that's why I'm running Cyber Essentials at cost price, because obviously I have to pay IASME for everybody that I put on, and it works out to be about, for a micro company, it's about £250, which is why I charge £250. So I make nothing from it. I'm purely doing this to help people out. But on that as well, if you still don't want to pay for that, for their fee, then it's just do the questionnaire, which you can download on the website, and I will mark it as if it is and let you know what doesn't conform to the standard, so that you can rectify any of that as well. But obviously you wouldn't get the certificate, you wouldn't get the cyber insurance, but you'll know that you're more cyber secure.
And that's a great offer as well, Leon. Thank you for that. So anybody who would like to at least sort of do a dummy run of the questions to make sure that they've got all the they've got their eggs in a row, or in the basket, as I should say. It's ducks in a row, isn't it? Not eggs in a row. If you want to take Leon up on that, that's a fantastic opportunity to just make sure and rubber stamp that you are as cyber secure as physically possible. So yeah, thank you for that, Leon. And obviously I'll just leave it to you to wrap up, mate.
Well, should we go over that the document, the quick fire guide, so that
by all
it
means,
sort of makes it a bit easier to understand?
go for it.
Yeah. So if I share again, there we go. Right, so if I go, here we go. So this is the quickfire guide. What I've done is these are all links, so you can just go straight to whichever one you like, but it is just a PDF document. So the 5 controls are firewalls, secure configuration, access control, malware protection, patch management. So firewalls, you need a firewall, and you need to change the password. The firewall needs to be recent enough to be not end of life. So if it goes end of life, then it needs to be changed. And turn off, make sure everything's turned. If it's your ISP router, which is your firewall as well, it comes as standard that nothing's broadcast on the internet. Everything's blocked coming in. You can only go out. It's called a stateful firewall, so that you access something on the web and then they can start a conversation. And that state of you asking them in is the stateful part of it, so that they can then have the conversation with you. And then as soon as you're done, it turns itself off automatically, so the state is no longer there and they can't get back in. And also access to the configuration over the internet will automatically not be there. So these are all as it comes, it's as secure as it can be, really. So its default settings are that. The only thing you need to change for the default settings is the password.
Can I just say something there, Leon? Sorry, if you don't mind. So just to let you know this, right? First of all, I think Leon will agree with me that one of the biggest problems, right, is that people that have firewalls don't know how to configure them properly.
Yeah.
Correct, Leon? Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so some people will say, well, I've got a firewall. Well, they may have a firewall, but do they have it properly configured, right? If you want to know how to configure a firewall, call Leon, right? That's the first point, right? The second point, though, is I just want to say that LuJam, is a particular sort of firewall, basically a DNS firewall. Would you agree with that description, Leon?
Yes, yeah.
And by that, what I mean is we block bad addresses and unknown addresses, right? So that's why we're inverted commas a firewall,
Yeah.
right? So i.e. included in our package is a firewall. That's what I wanted to say.
Yeah.
Jason's asking a question. Does Windows firewall get updated basically as through
Yes.
Windows?
Yeah. Windows firewall does get updated regularly. And as long as you've selected auto updates, then you're fine. You're covered with that. But that's the software firewall. You need a hardware firewall as well, which is generally, if people are working from home, that's your ISP router. ISP routers come pre-configured so that you only need to change the default password. If you get another firewall, like I've got a Juniper firewall, which is after my ISP router before it goes on to the office network, and that has to be configured separately. So if anybody gets anything like that, just let me know and we can sort that out. It's not a problem.
Brilliant, thank you. And Jason says thank you for the answer as well.
Yeah, no worries. So secure configuration. You need to make sure that you remove or disable unused software, that you only have necessary software for your business, or necessary accounts for your business. You have all default passwords are changed. Can't express that enough. Make sure that you have complex passwords. Auto run needs to be disabled. That's very important, so that people will find memory sticks laying around. They'll put them in their computer and it will automatically run what's on it. That's a big no-no. I don't know if anybody's aware of a hack called Stuxnet. This is the Iranian uranium enrichment program, so that they could get nuclear power or bombs. I think it was, we think maybe it was the CIA tried to hack into them to break them, but they're not connected to the internet. So which makes you think, how did they do it? What they did is they put malware on memory sticks or CDs, distributed it around the car parks of the facility. Somebody picked one up and put it in a machine. It auto played the software. We think, we don't know for sure. It auto played the software, and then it broke the centrifuges so that they couldn't enrich the uranium anymore. And that's happened more than once as well, which is quite funny. They fell for it twice. So that's secure configuration. Access control, that's all about having the correct accounts. So you have user accounts for users, admin accounts for admin, as well as user accounts for admin. So you don't use your admin accounts for doing things like surfing the web, things like that. And always put in two-factor authentication. Malware, you've got to have your malware protection, so that needs to be updated, needs to be installed on all endpoints. And then obviously you got your application sandboxing, as well as for your mobile devices, you have approved application list. And then for patch management, make sure things are patched by auto updates, and make sure everything's, the critical ones are done within 14 days. But what I do is, as soon as it becomes available, update it. Then you don't need to worry about it. Just set to automatically do as soon as it's there. And then if you've got applications which don't have the auto update function, then you need to make sure that as soon as these security updates are available, that they are put on as soon as possible, within 14 days of release. And that's it, really. It's fairly simple to do. But if there are anything that anybody doesn't understand or is unsure about, just let us know. And I can sort it out for you. It's no issues at all. That's what we're here for.
Just to say something, right? So, folks, I think Cyber Essentials came out 2014, Leon.
Yeah, around there, yeah.
2014. So, like, we're 8 years, 9 years on from that, right? In all of that time, in all the time I've been working with Cyber Essentials, I've never seen this put as simply as Leon has put it in that short overview list, which then links out to all of the questions, right? So that is a piece of gold that he's given you there, because I could tell you, right, you cannot get anything like that easily, right? So send it to people and then let them speak to Leon for the details.
Feel free to download it, pass my details on. It's not a problem. Even if somebody's a friend of a friend of a friend, anything like that, just give me a call. I'll happily talk to anybody about anything.
Leon, could you do me a big favour? Could you just put your details in the chat, telephone number?
Yep, absolutely.
Email address, website address, and obviously, don't forget Leon is on LinkedIn, so you can reach out to him through there. He's on Facebook as well. So if you're not on LinkedIn and you'd like to obviously reach out to him, then feel free to reach out to him on either of those. But if you've got some direct questions, or you need some understandable support from just to get your head around some of the things that we've spoken about today, or if there's an area where you think could let Leon have a look at that, just to make sure I am the right side of compliance, then fair enough. Do reach out to him.
There's another question there as well.
Oh, another question. Hang on, let's have a quick look at
the telemarketing agencies one.
That would be our lovely Sue, I would have thought. Yeah, hi. Yeah, let's have a quick look.
So I've put on the link to the website where those documents are as well.
Okay, mate, lovely. Yeah, brilliant, excellent. That's great. Thanks for that. If we haven't got any further questions, as I say, it just means reach out to Leon. If you do think of anything later that you'd like answered, then feel free to do so. Certainly would like to thank Leon for his time, his effort, and obviously making sure that we could bring this to you today. A lot of work's obviously gone into that presentation, and we're in a great opportunity we've obviously got a great opportunity to help you moving forward as well through the work that Leon does. So from me here at the association, I'd like to thank obviously you guys for being here and taking the time out this afternoon to become a little bit more cyber aware, or just get some understanding of it. But you know, hopefully we'll be bringing more of this sort of thing to you. We have got a new monthly event that we are going to be running as of February. It'll be on the last Thursday of the month, which it will be run between 1 and 2 p.m. and that is Simply Tech Talk, and that's going to cover all sorts of things like cyber. It will be cover things like IT infrastructure, telecoms. So there's a lot more coming to your way, and it's obviously available for you to access without any charge. So feel free to obviously join us, and we'll and look out for that event on LinkedIn as it goes live. I believe Kelly Thompson is going to be putting the event out very, very soon, who will be one of those people that will be heading that event up. So do look out for us. You'll see Leon and Chris Winley in and around that event as well on a regular basis. So even if you sort of get some questions that are coming up a bit later on, you can always reach out to us through that event as well. So thank you so much for being here. Thanks for taking your time out, and I hope you've learnt some valued lessons of what cyber is all about. And as I say, if you do need to ask any further questions, Leon, Chris, and Kelly Thompson are always available to point you in the direction where you need to go.
Always, yeah.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Well done, Leon.
Cheers.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Excellent. Well, that brings us to a close. I'm just going to stop the recording. Let me stop that.